Professor Alan Reed adjusted his glasses as he studied the ancient tablet under the harsh laboratory lights. The symbols weren't matching any known language, yet they appeared on artifacts from disparate civilizations across the globe. Civilizations that should have had no contact with one another. "Jack, come look at this," Alan called to his research assistant. The same warning appearing in cultures separated by oceans and millennia. Jack Wilson leaned over the workbench, his brow furrowed. "It can't be coincidence," he agreed, tracing the recurring pattern with his finger. Mesopotamian, Mayan, Indus Valley, all leaving messages about something beneath. Their archaeological team had been assembling these fragments for years. What began as an academic curiosity was evolving into something more disturbing. Every advanced ancient civilization had seemingly achieved greatness, then abruptly vanished, but not before leaving warnings. "The computer analysis finished," said Emma, their linguistics expert, entering with a tablet. "The translation algorithm found enough pattern consistency to attempt a rendering." She placed the tablet beside the artifacts. The screen displayed a simple message: "Beware the depths, it sleeps below." "That's it?" Jack asked. "All these civilizations disappeared just to tell us something's sleeping?" Alan shook his head. "No. Look at the secondary symbols." He pointed to a series of markings etched beneath the primary warning on each artifact. "These are mathematical coordinates." Emma nodded. "Different notation systems, but they all point to the same location." "Where?" Jack asked. Alan pulled up a global map on the main screen. A blinking red dot appeared in the Pacific Ocean, near what modern maps labeled the Mariana Trench, the deepest point on Earth. "I've cross-referenced with geological surveys," Emma said. "There's an anomaly there. Something massive that doesn't match natural formations." "How deep?" Alan asked, his voice tense. "Deeper than we've ever explored," Emma replied. "Below the known trench floor. The readings suggest it's hollow." The laboratory fell silent as the implications sank in. Civilizations throughout history had independently discovered this place, and each had left urgent warnings before disappearing. "We need to go there," Alan finally said. "Are you insane?" Jack protested. "Every civilization that found this thing vanished." "Exactly," Alan replied. "And humanity has already found it again. We're detecting it with our technology. The clock is already ticking." Emma pulled up additional translations. The Sumerian fragment mentions the Watcher cycle. Every civilization that grows advanced enough eventually detects whatever's down there. "And then what?" Jack asked. Alan's face was grim. "We don't know, but I'd rather find out on our terms than wait." 3 months later, they stood aboard the research vessel Challenger Deep, staring at sonar readings that confirmed the anomaly. Military observers had joined their expedition, the governments of the world taking the threat seriously enough to fund a joint mission. "The submersible is ready," announced Commander Thomas, the naval officer overseeing operations. "We can reach the anomaly depth with our specialized equipment." Alan looked at his team. "Humanity has achieved what none of those ancient civilizations could. We've created technology capable of reaching the depths they could only warn about." "That's what makes us different," Emma said. "We're not just leaving warnings. We're going to face it." As the submersible was prepared for descent, Alan wondered if humanity's technological advancement was their salvation, or if it simply meant they'd awaken whatever lurked below that much faster. The submersible Pioneer descended, through crushing darkness, its reinforced hull groaning under pressure no human vessel had ever withstood. Inside the cramped cabin, Alan and Emma monitored an array of instruments while Commander Thomas piloted. "Passing 10,000 meters, Thomas announced. "We're already deeper than any previous manned descent." The exterior cameras showed nothing but an endless black void occasionally interrupted by bioluminescent creatures, strange alien forms that drifted past like ghosts, unperturbed by the human intrusion into their domain. "The anomaly should be another 2,000 meters down," Emma said, eyes fixed on the sonar display. "It's massive." Alan studied the readings. The structure appears to be roughly cylindrical, approximately 3 kilometers in diameter. "Structure?" Thomas questioned. "You're certain it's artificial?" "Look at the geometric precision," Alan replied, pointing to the scan. "Nature doesn't create perfect cylinders buried under the ocean floor." As they descended further, communications, with the surface became increasingly distorted. The final transmission from the Challenger Deep was barely comprehensible. Losing your signal. Unusual seismic activity. Be careful. Then silence. We're on our own now, Thomas said grimly. At least until we resurface. The Pioneer continued its descent until the sonar pinged excitedly. They had reached the anomaly depth. Thomas activated the external floodlights, illuminating what should have been bare ocean floor. Instead, they saw a vast metallic surface stretching, beyond the range of their lights. It gleamed like polished obsidian, unmarred by the millions of years it had supposedly rested here. Impossible, Thomas whispered. Nothing should be preserved like this at these depths. For this long. Emma directed the sampling arm to touch the surface. It's warm, she said, reading the temperature gauge. Nearly 30 degrees Celsius. It's generating heat. Alan studied the surface through the viewport. There appear to be markings. No, not markings. An opening. What they had initially taken for decorative patterns was actually a massive circular door, easily 100 meters across. As the Pioneer approached, the patterns began to shift and realign, like the mechanisms of an enormous lock responding to their presence. "Pull back!" Alan shouted, but it was too late. The circular door began to rotate slowly, revealing a cavernous space beyond. A faint bluish light emanated from within, providing glimpses of a vast interior chamber. "It's waking up," Emma whispered. The submersible's instruments went haywire. Readings fluctuated wildly as an electromagnetic pulse surged from the opening. The Pioneer shuddered violently, its systems failing one by one. "We've lost propulsion," Thomas reported, frantically working the controls. "Emergency power only," as the vessel drifted helplessly toward the opening. Alan noticed something peculiar. "The water. Look at the water." Near the doorway, the ocean itself seemed to bend and distort, as if being pulled into the chamber by some unimaginable force. The Pioneer was caught in the current, being drawn inexorably inward. "Brace for impact!" Thomas yelled, but there was no impact. Instead, they felt a momentary disorientation as the submersible passed through what appeared to be a barrier. Not water, not air, but something in between. Then they were inside, floating in a massive chamber that defied all logic and understanding. "My God," Emma whispered, staring out the viewport at a technological marvel no human had ever witnessed. "It's not just a structure. It's a vessel." The Pioneer drifted into the colossal chamber, its emergency lights casting feeble beams through the strange atmosphere. It wasn't water they floated through, yet it wasn't quite air either. Some kind of breathable liquid medium that allowed for movement without crushing them under deep-sea pressure. "Systems are coming back online," Thomas reported, his voice tight with controlled panic. "Whatever this environment is, it's compatible with our technology." Alan stared through the viewport at what could only be described as an alien hangar bay. The chamber extended for hundreds of meters in every direction, its walls lined with what appeared to be docking stations for vessels far larger than their tiny submersible. Most were empty, but a few contained massive, silent shapes. "Not just a vessel," Alan corrected Emma's earlier observation. "A fleet." "But who built it?" Thomas asked. "And when?" Emma's fingers flew across her console. "I'm detecting atmospheric composition similar to Earth's, but with significantly higher oxygen content, comparable to our Carboniferous period, about 300 million years ago." "That's impossible," Alan said. "Human civilization is barely 10,000 years old." "Who said anything about human?" Emma replied quietly. A soft hum pervaded the chamber as strips of light along the walls brightened gradually, as if the facility were waking from hibernation. With growing illumination, they could see intricate symbols etched into the metallic surfaces, symbols identical to those on the ancient artifacts they'd studied. "It recognizes us," Alan realized. "Or at least it's responding to our presence." The Pioneer continued to drift toward what appeared to be a central platform. As they approached, a holographic display flickered to life. A three-dimensional projection of Earth, but not as they knew it. Continents were arranged differently. Oceans covered different areas. "That's Earth during the late Permian period," Emma whispered, her scientific training momentarily overcoming her fear. right before the Great Dying, the most severe extinction event in our planet's history. The hologram shifted, showing what appeared to be an invasion, massive vessels descending from space, deploying smaller craft that burrowed into the planetary crust. My God, Alan breathed. They weren't warning about something beneath the Earth. They were the something beneath the Earth. But if they've been here since the Permian, Thomas began, then they've witnessed the rise and fall of countless species, Emma finished, including the dinosaurs. And humans, Alan added grimly. We're just the latest in a long cycle. The hologram changed again, this time showing human civilization's development. From early agricultural settlements to modern cities, the display highlighted 7 distinct advanced civilizations that had preceded modern humanity, each achieving significant technological progress before abruptly disappearing. The lost civilizations, Alan said. Atlantis, Lemuria, pre-flood societies. They weren't myths. They found this place, Emma realized, just like we did. And then, the hologram completed its grim story, showing each civilization's collapse following their discovery of the subterranean facility. A new hologram appeared, displaying what appeared to be a countdown clock with unfamiliar symbols. But the meaning was clear enough. Something was initializing, awakening. We need to get out of here, Thomas urged. Get back to the surface, warn everyone. I don't think that's an option anymore, Emma said, pointing to the chamber entrance they'd passed through. It had sealed behind them. The Pioneer jolted suddenly as an invisible force locked onto it, drawing the submersible toward a smaller chamber branching off from the main hangar. Inside this new room, they saw examination tables and equipment that looked disturbingly similar to operating theaters. It wants specimens, Alan whispered, the terrible realization dawning. Just like every time before. The Pioneer's hull groaned as unseen forces maneuvered it into the examination chamber. Mechanical arms extended from the walls, probing the submersible's exterior like curious fingers. They're scanning us, Emma reported, watching sensor readings spike across her monitor. Electromagnetic, sonic, possibly others we can't even detect. Thomas worked frantically at the controls. Propulsion's back, but navigation's locked. We're trapped in some kind of tractor beam. Alan studied the alien technology surrounding them. Unlike the ancient warnings, crude and limited by primitive tools, this facility represented science so advanced it bordered on magic. Yet there was something familiar in its design principles, almost as if human engineering had been unconsciously influenced by these same patterns. Look, he said suddenly, pointing to a section of wall where panels were sliding apart. I think it's opening an airlock for us. You can't seriously be considering going out there, Thomas protested. Do we have a choice? Alan countered. Whatever's controlling this place wants to examine us. If we resist, it might just cut open the submersible. Emma nodded grimly. The atmospheric readings show it's breathable out there, similar to Earth's composition but richer in oxygen. We go together, Thomas insisted, checking his sidearm. The military had insisted on arming the expedition, a precaution that now seemed prescient. No one gets separated. They donned simple, breathing masks as a precaution and cycled through the Pioneer's small airlock. The alien chamber's atmosphere felt thick, almost gelatinous, yet they could move and breathe normally. Gravity seemed slightly lighter than Earth's. The moment they emerged, the examination equipment reconfigured itself. Tables adjusted to human proportions, and scanning devices pivoted toward them. It's adapting to us specifically, Emma observed. This technology is responsive, possibly intelligent. A holographic interface materialized before them, symbols flowing and rearranging in patterns that seemed almost comprehensible, as if deliberately simplified for their understanding. Alan reached out tentatively, touching one of the symbols. The hologram expanded, displaying what appeared to be a historical record. Images of reptilian beings operating the very facility they now stood in. The original builders, Alan breathed. They weren't from Earth. The hologram shifted again, showing these beings observing primitive Earth life, then later collecting specimens of evolving creatures. A cosmic zoo or laboratory with Earth as its subject. My God, Emma whispered. They've been driving evolution, studying it, directing it. The display continued its grim revelation. The aliens had established permanent monitoring stations throughout Earth's crust, watching as life evolved over hundreds of millions of years. The most disturbing images showed the beings manipulating early human ancestors, accelerating their development. "We're their experiment," Alan said hollowly. "Our entire species." Thomas gripped his weapon tighter. "Where are they now? These curators?" The hologram answered his question, showing the reptilian beings departing Earth in massive ships, but leaving behind automated systems to continue their work. The final images depicted the systems awakening periodically to assess humanity's progress. Each time humans became advanced enough to detect this facility, the system activated, Emma interpreted. It collected specimens, data, then reset civilization to continue the experiment. "Reset civilization?" Thomas demanded. "You mean destroyed it?" The hologram confirmed his fear, displaying images of ancient cities crumbling as strange energies pulsed from the ocean depths. Each advanced human culture had been systematically erased after discovering the truth. "And now it's our turn," Alan said quietly. "Unless we can break the cycle." A new hologram appeared. A simplified anatomical diagram of a human being, rotating. Slowly. Sections highlighted in sequence: brain, nervous system, genetic code. The mechanical arms around them twitched expectantly. "It wants to dissect us," Thomas said, raising his weapon. "Standard procedure for lab specimens." "No," Emma interrupted, studying the symbols. "It's offering a choice. This isn't just an examination. It's an evaluation." "An evaluation of what?" Alan asked. "Of whether we're ready," Emma replied, her voice barely a whisper. "Ready to know what they were really preparing us for." "Preparing us for what?" Thomas demanded, his weapon still raised defensively. Before Emma could answer, the chamber shuddered. The holographic displays flickered momentarily as a deep vibration resonated through the facility. "Something's changing," Alan said, watching as new sections of the chamber illuminated themselves, systems activating in sequence like a massive computer booting up. "I think our presence has triggered the next phase." The central hologram transformed into a galactic map, countless stars spinning slowly before them. A particular spiral arm highlighted, then zoomed into focus on a specific star system, their solar system. Earth appeared, but also a second planet, overlaid where Earth was. "What are we looking at?" Thomas asked. Emma studied the display intently. "It's showing Earth, and something else occupying the same space, some kind of dimensional overlay." The hologram shifted again, displaying what appeared to be massive beings, not the reptilian curators they'd seen earlier, but something far more alien and terrifying. These entities existed partly in dimensions beyond normal perception, their forms constantly shifting and realigning in ways that hurt the human mind to observe. "My God," Alan whispered. "The ancient texts, Lovecraft's stories, they were trying to describe these things." The display showed these entities imprisoned somehow, contained within a dimensional barrier that kept them separate from Earth's reality. The reptilian aliens had constructed the barrier millions of years ago, then established the monitoring stations to ensure it remained intact. "They weren't studying us," Emma realized, horror dawning on her face. "They were breeding us." The hologram confirmed her insight, showing human evolution guided toward specific traits: intelligence, adaptability, and most importantly, a unique neurological configuration that could perceive and interact with multiple dimensions. "We're the maintenance crew," Alan said, the terrible truth becoming clear. "They created humans to monitor and maintain the prison after they left." "But why? Leave it all?" Thomas asked. The hologram shifted to show the reptilian beings fighting a desperate war against the interdimensional entities, a war they were losing. Their final act was to create the prison and seed Earth with species that might eventually evolve the necessary traits to keep the prison operational. "They sacrificed themselves," Emma whispered. "Drew the entity's attention away from Earth while the prison stabilized." "And the lost civilizations?" Thomas asked. "Test runs," Alan answered grimly. "Each one found this place, learned the truth, but wasn't quite ready for the responsibility. The system reset them, and humanity continued evolving." Another tremor shook the facility, stronger this time. "Warning." Symbols flashed across the holographic displays. "The prison is failing," Emma translated. reading the alien symbols with growing comprehension. That's why the system activated now. It's an emergency. The central hologram displayed the prison's containment fields weakening. Microscopic fractures appearing in dimensional barriers that had held for millions of years. Through these fractures, the entities were beginning to perceive Earth's reality. Again. How long do we have? Thomas asked. Emma's expression was grim. Days, maybe hours. What does it want from us? Alan demanded of the system. In response, a new hologram appeared. Human minds linked directly to the facility's core systems, becoming living components of the dimensional prison. The display showed humans in suspended animation, their consciousness integrated with the alien technology. It needs pilots, Emma breathed. Human minds to recalibrate the dimensional barriers. And if we refuse? Thomas asked. The answer came in terrifying clarity. Images of the entities breaking through completely. Earth's reality torn apart as incomprehensible horrors poured through. Alan stared at the nightmare scenario, then at his companions. We aren't just fighting for humanity's survival anymore. We're the last defense against something that could unmake reality itself. How many people would it need? Emma asked the system. The answer appeared. 100 human minds with the correct neurological configuration. We need to contact the surface, Alan decided. We need volunteers. If they'll even believe us, Thomas said darkly. Another violent tremor rocked the facility. The hologram showed the prison's integrity dropping rapidly. They'll believe us, Alan replied grimly, when they see what's starting to break through. HFY journey back to the surface was a blur of desperate action. The alien facility, recognizing their decision to seek help, had released the Pioneer and even accelerated their ascent through means they couldn't comprehend. What should have taken hours occurred in minutes, water rushing past the viewport, at impossible speeds without crushing the submersible. Communications returned as they approached the surface, but the messages from the Challenger Deep were chaotic and frightened. Unprecedented seismic activity, strange atmospheric phenomena, lights in the sky. When they finally breached the surface, the scene that greeted them confirmed their worst fears. The night sky above the Pacific was fractured with aurora-like lights in impossible colors, colors that shouldn't exist in human perception. The research vessel was still there, but its crew stood transfixed, staring at the light show with expressions of mingled wonder and terror. It's beginning, Emma whispered. The dimensional barriers are breaking down. General Harris, the military liaison who had remained aboard the Challenger Deep, met them as they climbed from the submersible. His face was ashen. What the hell? Did you find down there? He demanded. The phenomenon started the moment you reached the anomaly depth. It's visible from satellite, spreading across the Pacific. Alan looked at the general squarely. We need to address the world's governments. Immediately. What we found affects all of humanity. Within hours, they were connected to an emergency United Nations session via satellite. The phenomenon had spread further, now visible across half the globe. Reports flooded in of strange sightings, distortions in reality, and most disturbingly, people experiencing collective nightmares of vast, incomprehensible entities. Alan explained what they had discovered, the ancient alien prison, the entities contained within, humanity's true purpose as inheritors of the system. He watched the faces of world leaders cycle through disbelief, shock, and finally grim acceptance as the evidence from the submersible's recordings was presented. You're saying we need 100 people to merge with this alien technology? The UN Secretary-General finally asked. To become living components of this prison? People with specific neurological patterns, Emma clarified. The system can identify compatible individuals. It's already scanning the human population. And the alternative? Asked another world leader. Thomas answered bluntly. Total extinction, at minimum. Possibly the end of reality as we know it. The debate was shorter than Alan had expected. With dimensional fractures appearing worldwide and panic spreading, the decision was made. 100 volunteers would be sought from among compatible candidates. The selection process revealed something unexpected. The necessary neurological pattern was most common among individuals with certain cognitive differences. Synesthetes, people on the autism spectrum, those with unusual pattern recognition abilities. The alien curators had been breeding these traits into humanity deliberately, preparing for this moment. Within 48 hours, as reality continued to unravel around them, 98 volunteers had been gathered and transported to the Challenger, deep. They came from all walks of life, all corners of the globe, united by their unique neurological architecture and their willingness to sacrifice themselves for humanity. Alan and Emma had automatically been included among the 100. As leading experts on the facility and among the first to make contact, the system had marked them as primary interfaces. "We're still too short," General Harris reported grimly. "The system won't initialize without exactly 100. Alan nodded, solemnly. "There are 2 more candidates aboard. They just don't know it yet." He looked meaningfully at Thomas and the general. Both men had been scanned by the facility during the initial briefings. Both possessed the necessary neurological patterns. Thomas understood immediately. "You knew?" "The system identified you when we returned," Emma admitted. "We were waiting for you to volunteer." The commander closed his eyes briefly. "My family will have a world to live in," Alan finished quietly. General Harris straightened, his uniform. "I've served my country for 30 years. Never thought I'd end up serving the entire damn universe." A grim smile crossed his face. "Where do I sign up?" As the 100 assembled on the deck of the Challenger Deep, the sky above had become a nightmare canvas of writhing colors and shapes that defied Euclidean geometry. Through the fractures, massive shadows could be glimpsed, the imprisoned entities sensing freedom after eons of confinement. "Once we're integrated with the system," Alan addressed the volunteers, "our consciousness will exist partly outside normal time. The facility exists in a dimensional pocket where subjective centuries might pass, while only years go by on Earth." "Will we ever return to our bodies?" someone asked. Emma's expression was gentle but honest. "The integration is permanent. We'll become the guardians of reality." One by one, the volunteers entered the submersibles that would take them to the ancient facility waiting below, to the destiny humanity had been created for. The integration was nothing like Alan had imagined. There was no pain, no sensation of losing himself. Rather, an expansion beyond anything human consciousness was meant to experience. His awareness stretched across dimensions, perceiving the prison not as physical architecture, but as an intricate lattice of energy and thought binding reality together. He sensed the others with him. 99 minds linked together, becoming the new custodians of the dimensional barriers. Emma's consciousness brushed against his, her scientific curiosity intact even in this transformed state. Thomas and General Harris maintained their protective instincts, now extended to guard all of existence. Together, they perceived the entities, struggling against their prison. Vast intelligences so alien that merely comprehending them would have shattered their former human minds. But in their new state, the 100 could see the entities clearly, while remaining protected from their influence. "They're aware of us," Emma's thoughts came to him. "They know we've taken control." The entity's attention shifted, focusing on the new guardians with ancient hatred. They had been imprisoned for millions of years, their freedom thwarted by the reptilian aliens and now by these human inheritors. "The barriers are stabilizing," Thomas observed as their collected consciousness worked in concert, repairing the dimensional fractures, reinforcing the weakened points in reality. Years passed on Earth while they worked, though for the integrated minds, it felt like centuries of vigilance. They watched humanity recover from the brief period of dimensional instability, rebuild, and continue to evolve. Most people never learned the full truth of what lurked beyond reality's edge, or the sacrifice made by the 100. But the system left clues, subtle signals that would lead future generations to understand their cosmic purpose if the prison ever weakened again. Humanity needed to be ready to provide new guardians when the current ones eventually failed. From their unique vantage point, the 100 witnessed humanity's expansion to the stars, carrying with them the neurological legacy of their alien creators, the capacity to perceive and interact with dimensional energies. Colonies spread throughout the solar system, then to nearby stars, developing technologies that increasingly resembled those of their reptilian predecessors. "They're following the path," Alan observed to the others, "becoming what they were always meant to be." The entities continued their relentless testing of the prison's boundaries, seeking weaknesses, patience infinite after eons of confinement. The 100 remained vigilant, their consciousness evolving further beyond humanity with each passing decade. After nearly a century of Earth time, they made a discovery that changed everything. Deep within the prison systems, they found records that the reptilian aliens had intentionally hidden, the true history of the conflict. The entities had not been aggressors, but refugees, fleeing across dimensions from an even greater threat. The reptilians had imprisoned them not out of defense but fear, unable to distinguish between the entities and what pursued them. "We've been maintaining a prison for the wrong reasons," Emma realized with horror. As if responding to this revelation, the prison systems revealed new configurations, not to strengthen the barriers, but to transform them. The 100 realized the truth. They weren't meant to be permanent jailers, but mediators, the final stage in the reptilians' plan. Humanity's unique consciousness, neither reptilian nor entity, could communicate with both sides. They could transform the prison into a dimensional embassy. It took another decade of careful work, but finally Alan initiated contact with the imprisoned entities, establishing the first true communication between realities. The entities' thoughts were vast and strange, but no longer incomprehensible to the evolved human minds. "We offer peace," Alan projected to them, "and alliance against what follows you." The response came not in words, but in concepts that unfolded. In his transformed consciousness, gratitude, relief, and warning. The true threat, the thing the entities fled from, was approaching, drawn by the dimensional disturbances. As the barriers transformed from prison to gateway, humanity's purpose became clear. They had not been created merely to maintain a prison, but to forge an alliance between dimensions against a cosmic threat greater than either world could face alone. The 100 watched as the first entities emerged carefully into Earth's dimension. Not as conquerors, but as refugees granted asylum. Far above, humanity's advanced starships prepared to defend their new allies. This is what we were meant for. Alan realized as human and entity consciousness began to interact, share, and merge. Not to end a war, but to prevent one, to create something entirely new. The ancient curators had engineered humanity not as simple caretakers, but as the bridge between realities. The mediators who could unite dimensional civilizations against the greater darkness approaching from beyond. And as the 100 observed, from their unique perspective outside normal time, they witnessed the beginning of humanity's true destiny among the stars and beyond them. Guardians not of a prison, but of a cosmic alliance that would span dimensions and stand against the encroaching void.